They held me down on the stone floor while my father raised the sword above my wrists. I could smell the frankincense burning in the corner of the room, the same scent from my childhood prayers, now mixed with my own fear sweat. The marble beneath my cheek was cold. So cold. But not as cold as my father's voice when he said, "You chose this, daughter. You chose that Kafir god over your own blood." The blade came down. I need you to understand something before I go any further. That moment, that single, irreversible moment, didn't just happen randomly. It was the culmination of 23 years of living in the most beautiful prison you could ever imagine. So let me take you back. Let me show you where this nightmare truly began. Because my story doesn't start with violence. It starts with silk. My name is, well, you'll understand why I can't tell you my real name. But for now, you can call me Maryam. That's the name Jesus gave me later. The name that replaced the one my father cursed. I grew up in Riyadh, in a palace that most people only see in magazines. And yes, I said palace. My family wasn't just wealthy, we were royalty adjacent. Close enough to the Saudi royal family that our name carried weight. Close enough that when my father spoke, governors listened. Close enough that our compound had 12-foot walls topped with security cameras and guards who carried automatic weapons disguised as hospitality. I wore designer abayas that cost more than most people's cars. Custom-made in Paris, shipped to our home, black silk embroidered with patterns so intricate they looked like spiderwebs made of shadow. Underneath? Chanel. Dior. Valentino. Brands I could wear only inside our home, only in front of women, only in the suffocating privacy of our gilded cage. My bedroom overlooked a garden where fountains bubbled with water that cost more to maintain than it would to feed a village. At night, I'd stand at my window, the one window I was allowed to look out of without covering, and watch those fountains. The water danced. Free. Mindless. Beautiful. I was so jealous of that water. Have you ever had everything and nothing at the same time? Have you ever worn a diamond necklace that felt like a noose? My father was a man who made kings nervous. I'm not exaggerating. He sat on the boards of 3 major oil companies. He advised ministers. He had a direct phone line to princes who appeared on CNN. When he walked into a room, the temperature dropped 5 degrees. Not because of air conditioning. Because of fear. He was tall, taller than most Saudi men, with a beard he kept perfectly trimmed and oiled with oud that announced his presence before he even entered a room. That smell. God, I can still smell it. Oud mixed with amber and something else, something like metal and old paper. The smell of power. The smell of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. His eyes were the worst part. Black. Not brown, truly black. Like oil wells. Like the pits they throw criminals into. When he looked at me, I felt like I was being appraised. Evaluated. Measured against some impossible standard I could never reach because I had been born with the wrong body. The wrong gender. The wrong everything. Asma, he'd say, that was my old name, the one I've left buried in the sand. A woman is like a jewel. Precious. Valuable. And what do we do with jewels? I knew the answer. I'd heard it 1,000 times. We lock them away, Baba. We protect them. Yes. His smile never reached his eyes. We protect them from thieves. From dirt. From the world that would destroy their value. I was 17 when I realized he wasn't talking about protection. He was talking about ownership. My mother never spoke unless spoken to. She was beautiful once. I've seen the photographs from before her marriage, hidden in a box in her closet. Smiling. Eyes alive. But by the time I was old enough to really see her, she'd become a ghost. She'd drift through our marble halls in cream-colored abayas, silent as smoke, present but not really there. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at nothing. Just staring. And I'd wonder what she was seeing. What memory she was visiting. What version of herself she'd locked away in order to survive. I had 3 brothers. They didn't live in the same house I did. Not really. They lived in a world of freedom, university abroad, luxury cars, nightclubs in Dubai, Western girlfriends they'd never marry. They could be human. They could make mistakes. They could breathe. I had one sister, Layla. She was younger than me by 3 years, and she was perfect. Perfectly obedient. Perfectly submissive. Perfectly dead inside. She'd already accepted her fate. At 15, she'd already learned how to kill the part of herself that wanted more. But I hadn't. Not yet. I was the problem child. The one who asked too many questions during Quran study. The one who lingered too long on BBC News when it showed women in other countries going to university, driving cars, choosing their own husbands. The one who my father watched with increasing suspicion, as if he could sense the rebellion growing inside me like a cancer he couldn't cut out. I prayed 5 times a day. I wore my hijab. I lowered my gaze around men. I did everything I was supposed to do. But inside? Inside, I was screaming. The palace had 40 rooms. I was allowed to occupy maybe 7 of them. The garden I mentioned? I could only go there with supervision. A driver took me to my private Islamic school for girls. A chaperone accompanied me everywhere. Even shopping, something that should have been fun, was orchestrated with military precision. Stores would be cleared out for us. Closed to the public. So I could spend my father's money surrounded by emptiness. I remember once, I must have been 19, I was trying on shoes at a luxury boutique in Riyadh. Through the window, I saw a woman. A Western woman. She was walking alone. Alone. No male guardian. No abaya. Just walking. She stopped to buy coffee from a street vendor. She laughed at something he said. She threw her head back, and the sun caught her hair, uncovered hair, brown and shining in the light. I stood there with $1,000 shoe in my hand, and I wanted to cry. The saleswoman noticed. Beautiful, yes? You should take them, princess. I bought the shoes. Wore them once. They sat in my closet with 100 other beautiful things I didn't want. Because here's what nobody tells you about wealth, it doesn't mean anything when you're not free. All the money in the world can't buy you the one thing you actually need. Choice. Agency. The simple, basic human right to decide what your own life will look like. My father started talking about my marriage when I turned 21. Casual mentions at first. You're getting older, Asma. Soon you'll need a husband to care for you. As if I were livestock with an expiration date. I'd smile. Nod. Say what I was supposed to say, yes, Baba. Whatever Allah wills. Whatever you decide is best. But at night, alone in my room with its silk sheets and its prison window view, I'd whisper different words. Forbidden words. Please. Please, somebody help me. Anybody. I don't want this life. I don't want to become my mother. Please. I was praying to Allah. I know that now. I thought I was praying to someone who cared. I didn't know yet that he was never going to answer. That there was someone else, someone whose name I wasn't even allowed to speak, who'd been listening all along. That realization came later. In blood. In miracle. In the moment my father's sword came down, and the impossible happened. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to understand what I was. What I had been trained to be. The golden cage. The silk prison. The slow suffocation of a life that looked perfect from the outside and felt like death from the inside. Because only then will you understand why I risked everything, my family, my fortune, my very life, for a God I wasn't supposed to know existed. Only then will you understand why these hands, the ones I'm holding up to this camera right now, are the greatest miracle you'll ever see. The day my father destroyed my life started like any other day in hell. I woke up to the sound of the morning adhan, the call to prayer echoing from the mosque near our compound. The muezzin's voice was beautiful, I'll give him that. Haunting. It used to comfort me when I was younger. Now it just reminded me that I had another day of performance ahead. Another day of pretending. I performed wudu, the ritual washing, in my marble bathroom with gold fixtures that probably cost more than most people earn in a year. Cold water on my face. My arms. My feet. Washing away invisible impurities while the real dirt, the hopelessness, the rage, the suffocating despair, stayed buried deep inside where no water could reach it. I prayed far. Forehead to the prayer rug. Arabic words I'd memorized before I could read. Allahu Akbar. God is greatest. I said the words. Went through the motions. Bowed. Prostrated. But I felt nothing. Just cold marble beneath my knees and the familiar ache of talking to a ceiling. Have you ever prayed to someone who never answers? It's worse than being ignored by a person. Because at least with a person, you can make excuses. They're busy. They didn't hear you. They'll respond later. But God? God is supposed to be all-knowing. All-present. All-powerful. So when he doesn't answer, what does that say about you? I finished my prayer and sat there for a moment, staring at the intricate patterns on my prayer rug. Persian silk. Handwoven. Worth a fortune. And suddenly I hated it. Hated the beauty of it. Hated that even my prayers had to be performed on something expensive. Something that proved our status. Our wealth. Our superiority. I wanted to pray on dirt. On bare ground. On something real. My phone buzzed, the one my father allowed me to have, the one he monitored, the one that came with a list of rules longer than the Quran itself. It was a message from my mother. Your father wants to see you in his study after breakfast. Wear the grey abaya. My stomach dropped. The grey abaya was the serious one. The one I wore for important family meetings. For discipline. For announcements that would change everything. I sat there on my prayer rug, heart pounding, running through everything I'd done in the past few weeks. Had I been caught looking at something forbidden online? Had one of the housekeepers reported me for some invisible infraction? Had my driver mentioned that I'd been asking questions about the university in Jeddah, the one that was supposed to be more progressive? In my father's house, paranoia wasn't a mental illness. It was a survival skill. Breakfast was silent. We ate in the women's dining room, my mother, my sister Layla, and me. My brothers ate separately with my father. Another day in the gender-segregated kingdom. The food was elaborate. Fresh baked bread. Cheese imported from France. Honey from Yemen. Dates stuffed with almonds. Orange juice squeezed that morning by a servant whose name I'd never been allowed to learn. Because learning the help's names might make me think of them as human. Might make me too soft. I couldn't eat. Every bite tasted like sand. My mother noticed but said nothing. She'd learned long ago that questions only brought pain. Layla chatted about some Islamic lecture she'd attended, about how the Imam had explained women's role in Jannah, paradise. How we'd be rewarded for our obedience. How our submission in this life would be repaid in the next. I wanted to scream. And what if there is no next life? What if this is it? What if we're wasting our one chance at existence being silent and small and invisible? But I didn't say any of that. I smiled. Nodded. Took another bite of bread that turned to ash in my mouth. When breakfast ended, I went to my room and put on the grey abaya. It was heavier than my others. Thicker fabric. More coverage. Less beautiful. It wasn't designed to make me feel good. It was designed to make me remember my place. I covered my hair with the matching shayla, the headscarf, and checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked like every other good Saudi woman. Modest. Covered. Erased. I looked like my mother. That's when I knew whatever was about to happen was going to change everything. My father's study was on the far side of the compound. I walked there through hallways lined with photographs of him shaking hands with important men. Ministers. Princes. CEOs. In every photo, he was smiling. That smile that never reached his eyes. There were no photos of my mother. No photos of us children, except for my brothers at their university graduations. The women of the family didn't exist on his walls. We were private. Hidden. Like the expensive jewelry you keep in a safe, valuable but never displayed. I knocked on the heavy wooden door. 3 times. Always 3. Enter. His voice made my skin crawl. Deep. Authoritative. The voice of a man who'd never had to raise it to make people obey. I opened the door. He sat behind a desk the size of a small car. Dark wood. Probably cut from some endangered tree in a rainforest somewhere. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves held religious texts, business volumes, and legal documents. The Quran had its own special shelf. Gold embossed. Elevated above everything else. The room smelled like oud and old leather and power. Sit, he said without looking up from whatever document he was reviewing. I sat in the chair across from him. The one position slightly lower than his. Everything in this room was designed to remind you of your position in the hierarchy. He made me wait. Classic power move. I sat there in silence, hands folded in my lap, eyes lowered, while he read. Or pretended to read. I could never tell with him. Finally, he set down his pen and looked at me. Those black eyes. Dead. Empty. Evaluating. You're 23 years old, Asma. Yes, Baba. Your sister is younger than you, yet she is already engaged. My heart started racing. No. Please, no. Yes, Baba. People are starting to talk. They're wondering why my eldest daughter remains unmarried. They're wondering if there's something wrong with you. I kept my eyes down. Kept my voice steady. There is nothing wrong with me, Baba. I am simply waiting for Allah's will. And yours. Good. He leaned back in his chair. Because I have found someone. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair to keep myself steady. His name is Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid. He's 57 years old. A respected scholar. Very conservative. Very traditional. He serves as an advisor to the religious police. He paused, watching my reaction. He already has 2 wives. You will be his 3rd. I couldn't breathe. The gray abaya felt like it was strangling me. 57 years old. 2 wives already. Religious police. This wasn't a marriage. This was a burial. He has specifically requested a young wife. One who is pure. Obedient. From a good family. My father smiled. That terrible smile. I told him you were perfect. That you've been raised properly. That you understand a woman's place. I wanted to run. Wanted to scream. Wanted to claw at the walls until my fingers bled. Instead, I whispered, when? The nikah will be in 6 weeks. We'll have the celebration here. 300 guests. I've already begun the arrangements. 6 weeks. 42 days. 1008 hours until I became the property of a man older than my father. Until I became wife number 3. Until I joined a harem. Until I disappeared completely. He's a good man, Asma. Pious. Wealthy. Connected. This marriage will be beneficial for our family, for our reputation, and for your soul." He picked up his pen again, dismissing me. "Your mother will take you shopping for the wedding clothes. Try to look pleased, grateful. Remember, there are women who would kill for this opportunity." I stood. My legs were shaking, but I forced them to hold me. "Yes, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Allahu Akbar." The words came out automatically. Programmed responses from 23 years of training. I turned to leave. "Asma." I stopped. "Don't disappoint me. Don't embarrass this family. Sheikh Khalid is doing us an honor by accepting you. Remember that." The threat was clear. Obey, or face consequences I didn't want to imagine. "I understand, Baba." I walked out of his study, closed the door quietly behind me, made it halfway down the hallway before my legs gave out. I collapsed against the wall, grey abaya pooling around me like dirty water, and pressed my hand against my mouth to keep the scream inside. 6 weeks. 6 weeks until I became wife number 3 to a man who advised the religious police. The same police who arrested women for showing their ankles, for laughing too loudly, for existing too publicly. 6 weeks until I entered a home where 2 other women already lived. 2 other prisoners. Where I'd share a husband like I was part of a collection. Where I'd wait my turn for his attention like waiting in line at a bank. 6 weeks until I became my mother. Until the light in my eyes died. Until I learned to be a ghost. I sat there on that cold marble floor in that beautiful hallway in that prison palace, and I prayed. Desperately. Frantically. "Allah, please. Please, I'm begging you. Send me a sign. Show me a way out. I'll be more obedient. I'll pray more. I'll be better. Just please, please don't let this happen. Please don't let me disappear." I waited for an answer. For peace. For anything. Silence. The same silence I'd been hearing my entire life. The Adhan for Dur, the noon prayer, began echoing from the mosque. The muezzin's beautiful, haunting voice calling the faithful to submit. I stayed on the floor. Because in that moment, I realized something that would change everything. I didn't want to submit anymore. I didn't want to bow to a God who never answered. I didn't want to spend my life being grateful for scraps of existence. I wanted to live. And I had 6 weeks to figure out how. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment. The exact moment when everything began to crack. When the programming started to glitch. When the first tiny seed of rebellion took root in my heart. It would take another 3 weeks before I found the Bible. 2 weeks after that before Jesus appeared to me. And exactly 41 days before my father raised the sword above my wrists and I learned what miracles really look like. But right then, sitting on that marble floor in my grey abaya, I was just a terrified girl with a death sentence disguised as a wedding invitation. Right then, I was still praying to the wrong God. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in slow suffocation. My mother took me shopping. Not the kind of shopping where you laugh and try on ridiculous things and drink overpriced coffee. No. This was shopping as punishment. Shopping as preparation for a funeral, mine. We went to boutiques that had been closed to the public for our private appointments. She and the saleswomen would pull out wedding dresses, white ones, embroidered with gold thread, encrusted with crystals that caught the light like tiny knives. They'd hold them up against me, discussing fabrics and cuts and hemlines, and I'd stand there like a mannequin. Like an object being decorated for display. "This one is beautiful, mashallah," the saleswoman would say. "Yes," my mother would reply. "But perhaps more coverage on the arms. Sheikh Khalid is very traditional." Sheikh Khalid. That name became the rhythm of my nightmares. I'd smile. Nod. Let them dress me like a doll. But inside, I was dissolving. Cell by cell. Breath by breath. I was disappearing before the wedding even happened. At night, I'd lie in my bed, my expensive, comfortable, suffocating bed, and stare at the ceiling until dawn. Sleep felt like surrender. Like if I closed my eyes, I'd wake up and it would be the wedding day. So I fought it. Stayed awake. Counted the days I had left like a prisoner counting down to execution. 39 days. 38 days. 37 days. And I prayed. Oh God, how I prayed. I became the most devout woman in our household. I performed extra prayers, tahajjud in the middle of the night, duha in the morning. I read the Quran until my eyes burned and the Arabic letters blurred together. I fasted on Mondays and Thursdays like the Prophet supposedly did. I gave extra charity, not my money, of course, because I didn't have any, but I'd beg my father for cash to give to the poor, and he'd actually look pleased. Finally, his eyes seemed to say, "You're becoming who you're supposed to be." But I wasn't praying because I was becoming devout. I was praying because I was drowning. And I was grabbing for anything that might save me. I'd prostrate on my prayer rug, forehead pressed so hard against the silk that it left marks on my skin, and I'd whisper the same desperate plea over and over. Allah, please. Show me a sign. Tell me what to do. Give me a way out. I'm yours. I'm completely yours. Just please, don't let this marriage happen. Please. Nothing. Silence so complete it echoed. Have you ever shouted into a void? Have you ever poured out your heart to someone who isn't there? I'd learned all the rules. Prayed the right way. Said the right words. Faced Mecca. Covered properly. Performed wudu correctly. I'd done everything I was supposed to do. I'd been a good Muslim girl my entire life. And for what? One night, I think it was around day 33, I had a complete breakdown. It was 3 a.m. The time when they say Allah descends to the lowest heaven to hear prayers. The time when dua is supposed to be most powerful. I got out of bed, made wudu with shaking hands, and prostrated on my prayer rug. And I didn't just pray. I begged. Allah, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Why are you punishing me? I've tried to be good. I've tried to obey. Please, please, I'm begging you, if you're real, if you're there, if you care at all about me, show me. Send me something. A dream. A sign. A feeling. Anything. I stayed there for an hour. Prostrate. Forehead on the ground. Tears soaking into the prayer rug beneath me. I don't want to marry him. I can't. I'll die. Maybe not physically, but everything that makes me will die. Please. You're supposed to be the most merciful. The most compassionate. Where is your mercy for me? Where is your compassion? My body shook with sobs. Raw. Ugly. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep inside you that it hurts your chest. Tell me what to do. I'll do anything. I'll wear niqab. I'll never complain again. I'll be perfect. Just please, please don't abandon me now. I need you. I need. My voice broke. Because in that moment, I realized something horrifying. I was talking to emptiness. I was pouring my heart out to a concept. An idea. A set of rules written in a book. There was no presence in the room. No peace. No comfort. No sense that anyone, anywhere, was listening. Just me. Alone. In a dark room. Talking to the air. I stayed prostrate anyway. Because what else could I do? In my world, Allah was the only option. The only God. The only possible source of help. If he wouldn't save me, then there was no salvation. So I stayed there until the far adhan began. Until my knees ached and my back cramped and my face was swollen from crying. When I finally sat up, the sun was beginning to rise outside my window. Pink and orange light bleeding across the sky. beautiful, indifferent. The world kept turning whether I suffered or not. I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. My eyes were red. My face was puffy. I looked destroyed. And I felt nothing. No peace from my prayers. No answers. No comfort. Just exhaustion and the same crushing dread I'd felt before I started. What's the point? I whispered to my reflection. That was the first truly heretical thought I'd ever allowed myself to think. The next few days were a fog. I went through the motions. Prayed at the right times. Attended more wedding planning sessions. Smiled when I was supposed to smile. But something inside me had cracked. A foundation stone had shifted. And once you feel that shift, you can never go back to believing the structure is solid. My sister Layla noticed. We were sitting in the women's living room, separate from the men's living room, of course, and she was showing me pictures on her phone of her own engagement party. She was genuinely excited. Glowing. She'd looked at her future husband, a man our father had chosen, and somehow convinced herself this was love. This was destiny. This was Allah's perfect plan. You'll feel better once you meet Sheikh Khalid properly, she said, touching my hand. Once you see how kind he is. How wise. Baba wouldn't choose wrong for you. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At her bright, empty eyes. At her genuine smile. At the way she'd swallowed the lie so completely that it had become her truth. And I realized, I was looking at my future. This is what I was supposed to become. This is what successful looked like in our world. Have you ever questioned it? I asked quietly. Any of it? Her smile faltered. Questioned what? This. The way we live. The rules. The everything. She pulled her hand back like I'd burned her. Her eyes darted to the door, checking if anyone had heard. Asma, don't. Don't talk like that. I'm just asking. Questions like that are from Shaitan. She lowered her voice to an urgent whisper. You're just nervous about the wedding. It's normal. But you can't think like that. It's dangerous. Dangerous. That word again. In my world, thinking was dangerous. Questioning was dangerous. Wanting something different was dangerous. Only obedience was safe. You're right, I said, forcing a smile. I'm just nervous. It'll be fine. She relaxed. Smiled again. Went back to showing me pictures. But I'd seen the fear in her eyes. The real, genuine terror at the idea of questioning anything. She wasn't just obedient. She was terrified of disobedience. Terrified of what might happen if she let herself want more. She was already dead. She just hadn't stopped moving yet. That night, I didn't pray. I couldn't. The words felt meaningless. The rituals felt empty. I'd performed them 1,000 times and nothing had changed. Nothing had helped. Allah, if he even existed, clearly didn't care about me. Instead, I sat at my window and looked out at the garden. At the fountains. At the walls that kept me in and the world out. There has to be more than this, I whispered. There has to be. But I didn't know what that more could be. In Saudi Arabia, there was Islam or there was death. There was obedience or there was punishment. There was no third option. No escape hatch. No alternative reality where girls like me got to choose their own lives. Or so I thought. I didn't know that in exactly 4 days, I'd find a book hidden in a place I wasn't supposed to go. I didn't know that book would contain words I wasn't supposed to read. I didn't know that those words would detonate something inside me that no amount of programming could defuse. I didn't know that the more I was desperately searching for had a name. A face. A voice that actually answered when you cried out in the dark. All I knew in that moment was that I'd spent 3 weeks begging Allah for help, and he'd given me nothing but silence. So I stopped begging. I stopped praying. I stopped believing that anyone in the universe cared whether I lived or died, whether I was happy or miserable, whether I disappeared into marriage with Sheikh Khalid or somehow found a way to escape. It's a terrible thing, that kind of hopelessness. That complete absence of faith. That darkness that settles over you when you realize you're utterly, completely alone. But sometimes, you have to lose the wrong God before you can find the right one. Sometimes, you have to hit rock bottom before you can recognize the hand reaching down to pull you up. Sometimes, the silence of one God is necessary so you can finally hear the voice of another. I just didn't know it yet. All I knew was that I had 29 days until my wedding. 29 days until I ceased to exist as myself and became someone's third wife. Someone's property. Someone's half-life. 29 days to figure out if living was even worth it anymore. That's when I found the Bible. Or maybe, it found me. The library was forbidden. Not officially. Not in the way things are explicitly forbidden in a Saudi household, with warnings and threats and locked doors. But it was my father's private space. His sanctuary. The place where he conducted business, read his precious books, and made decisions that affected our lives like a king issuing decrees. We, the women, were not welcome there. Unspoken rule. The kind you absorb through your skin growing up. Like knowing not to look men in the eye. Like knowing not to laugh too loudly. You just knew. But on day 28, 28 days until Sheikh Khalid would own me, I stopped caring about rules. It was late afternoon. My father was out at some meeting with government officials. My brothers were at university in London. My mother and Layla were at a women's religious gathering I'd managed to excuse myself from by claiming a migraine. The servants were in the far wing of the compound. I was alone. And something inside me, something reckless and desperate and done with obedience, whispered, "Go to the library." I don't know what I was looking for. Escape? Distraction? Some secret business document I could use to, what? Blackmail my father into canceling the wedding? It was stupid. Impossible. But I wasn't thinking rationally anymore. I was a drowning person grabbing for anything that looked like it might float. The hallway to his study felt longer than usual. My footsteps echoed on the marble, too loud, too obvious, even though I knew I was alone. Guilt and rebellion have a way of making you paranoid. I reached the door. Heavy wood. Carved with geometric Islamic patterns. I put my hand on the brass handle. It was unlocked. My father never left it unlocked. Never. He was meticulous about security, about privacy, about control. But today, for some reason, some impossible reason, it was unlocked. I should have seen it as a warning. A sign to turn back. But instead, I saw it as permission. As an opportunity. I opened the door and slipped inside. The smell hit me first. Old books. Leather. Food. Power. The scent of my father's domain. I felt like an intruder in a king's throne room, about to be caught and executed. But I also felt something else. A strange pull. Like something in this room was calling me. Drawing me forward. The library was enormous. 3 walls lined floor to ceiling with bookshelves. His massive desk sat in the center like an altar. Behind it, a window overlooked the garden, the only window in the compound that had a view from a position of power instead of imprisonment. I walked along the shelves, running my fingers over the spines. Qurans in multiple languages. Hadith collections. Islamic jurisprudence. Business books. Economic treatises. Legal documents. Nothing interesting. Nothing helpful. Nothing that would save me. I was about to leave when I noticed something odd. One section of the bookshelf, in the far corner, behind his desk, looked different. The books there were older. Dustier. Stacked less carefully. Like they'd been shoved there and forgotten. Or hidden. My heart started pounding. I walked over and pulled out a few books. English titles. Some in other European languages I didn't recognize. Philosophy. History. Western literature. These weren't books my father would display publicly. In Saudi Arabia, Western books, especially old ones, were viewed with suspicion. They represented outside influences, corrupting ideas, the kind of intellectual freedom that threatened the entire structure of our society. But my father collected them anyway. Because powerful men are allowed their hypocrisies. I kept pulling books out, looking at titles, setting them aside. Then my hand touched something that felt different. Smaller. Wrapped in cloth. I pulled it out carefully. It was a book wrapped in a plain brown cloth, tied with string. Old string. Fraying. Like it had been here for years. Decades maybe. I untied the string with trembling fingers. The cloth fell away. And I was holding a Bible. Not just any Bible. An Arabic Bible. Old. The cover was worn leather, cracked and faded. Gold letters embossed on the front, Al-Kitab al-Muqaddas. The Holy Book. I nearly dropped it. A Bible. In my father's library. In our strictly Islamic household. In Saudi Arabia, where possessing a Bible could get you arrested. Where Christian conversion was punishable by death. Why did my father have this? Why was it hidden here? Was it evidence from some legal case? A confiscated item? A trophy from someone's arrest? I should have put it back. Should have wrapped it up, returned it to its hiding place, and pretended I'd never seen it. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there holding it. This forbidden thing. This dangerous thing. This thing that I'd been taught my entire life was corrupted. False. Written by infidels to lead Muslims astray. My hands were shaking. My pulse was racing. Every instinct screamed at me to put it down. But a different voice, quieter but stronger, whispered, "Open it." I sat down in my father's chair. Behind his desk. In his seat of power. And I opened the Bible. The pages were thin. Delicate. Yellow with age. The Arabic script was beautiful, flowing and careful, written in a style that reminded me of the Quran. I flipped through randomly, not knowing where to start, not even sure what I was looking for. The pages fell open to a section marked Injil Matta, the Gospel of Matthew. My eyes landed on chapter 11, verse 28. The verse was marked with a faint pencil line in the margin. Someone had read this. Someone had noted this. I read. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I stopped breathing. Read it again. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Weary. Burdened. That was me. That was exactly me. Those words could have been written about my life. About the crushing weight of expectations and rules and forced marriage and silent prayers to a God who never answered. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It was the next part. I will give you rest. Not if you obey perfectly. Not if you pray 5 times a day. Not if you cover yourself and submit and disappear and become small. Just, come to me. I will give you rest. My eyes filled with tears. I didn't even know why. This was a corrupted book. A false book. These were the words of Christians, kafirs, infidels, people destined for hellfire. But they felt more true than anything I'd ever read in the Quran. They felt like someone actually understood. Like someone actually cared. Like someone was actually speaking directly to me instead of giving me a list of rules to follow. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. Hungry now. Desperate. I flipped to another marked page. The Gospel of John. Chapter 8. A story about a woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders wanted to stone her, the same way they'd stone women in my country for the same crime. They brought her to Jesus, testing him, trying to trap him with the law. And Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." One by one, the accusers left. And Jesus turned to the woman and said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." I sat back in my father's chair, staring at those words. Neither do I condemn you. In my world, everything was about condemnation. About sin and punishment and hell. About how we were all terrible and deserving of fire and only perfect obedience might save us. About how women especially were sources of fitna, of temptation and chaos, needing to be controlled and covered and contained. But this Jesus, he looked at a woman everyone else wanted to kill, and he said, "Neither do I condemn you." Not because she hadn't sinned. But because I didn't even know how to finish that thought. It didn't fit into any framework I'd been given. It was revolutionary. Dangerous. Impossible. I kept reading. I couldn't stop. Hours passed. The afternoon call to prayer came and went. I didn't move. Didn't pray. Just read. I read about Jesus healing people. Touching lepers who were untouchable. Speaking to women publicly, women like the Samaritan at the well, who had had 5 husbands. Women who were outcasts. Sinners. Unclean. And he spoke to them with respect. With kindness. With dignity. I read about him challenging the religious leaders. Calling them hypocrites. Whitewashed tombs. More concerned with rules than with people's hearts. I read his words, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Rules serving people. Not people serving rules. It was everything I'd ever wanted but never knew existed. Everything I'd been starving for but didn't have words to name. Then I found the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who mourn. I was mourning. Mourning my lost freedom. My lost future. My lost self. And this Jesus was saying, I was blessed. They will be comforted. Not if you obey. Not if you're good enough. Just, they will be comforted. Promise. Simple. Direct. Like someone was making a covenant specifically with me. I closed the book carefully. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. My entire worldview, 23 years of careful programming and indoctrination, was cracking like ice on a frozen lake when the temperature rises. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be true. This was the corrupted book. The false gospel. The lies of the infidels. But it didn't feel like lies. It felt like the first true thing I'd ever encountered. I looked at the clock on my father's desk. I'd been in here for 3 hours. The sun was setting. My family would be home soon. I needed to put the Bible back. Hide it. Pretend I'd never seen it. But I couldn't. I sat there holding it, this dangerous thing, this forbidden thing, and I made a decision that would either save my life or end it. I unwrapped my outer abaya and created a makeshift pouch inside. I slipped the Bible in, hidden against my body where no one could see. Then I rewrapped the cloth that came in around some other random books and put them back on the shelf, hoping no one would notice one was missing. I left the library. Closed the door. Walked back to my room with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I'd just committed a crime punishable by death. I'd just stolen a Bible. I'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And the strangest part? The absolutely inexplicable part. For the first time in 28 days, maybe for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel hopeless. I felt terrified, yes. Guilty, yes. Confused, absolutely. But I also felt something else. Something warm. Something like hope. Like maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who actually cared. Who actually saw me. Who wouldn't demand my complete erasure as the price of his love. I didn't know yet that his name was Jesus. I didn't know yet that he'd been waiting for me my entire life. I didn't know yet that in exactly 11 days, he'd appear to me in a way that would shatter every doubt and change everything forever. All I knew in that moment was that I'd found something worth dying for. And in a country where reading it could get me killed, that was saying something. That night, I hid the Bible inside my pillowcase. Slept with my hand touching it through the fabric. Like a child holding a security blanket. Like a prisoner holding the key to her cell. And for the first time in weeks, when I closed my eyes, I didn't count the days until my wedding. Instead, I whispered into the darkness, not to Allah this time, but to whoever had written those words that felt like they'd been written specifically for me. If you're real, if you're really there, please show me. I need to know. I need to know if there's more than this. If there's someone who actually hears. Please. I fell asleep waiting for an answer. I didn't know it was already on its way. For the next 10 days, I lived 2 lives. In the first life, the visible one, I was the obedient daughter preparing for her wedding. I attended dress fittings. I smiled at my future husband during the one brief, chaperoned meeting my father arranged. Sheikh Khalid was exactly what I'd imagined, old, cold, with eyes that assessed me like I was livestock he was considering purchasing. He spoke to my father the entire time. Never to me. I was just there. A transaction being finalized. His 2 other wives weren't present, of course. I'd meet them after the wedding. After it was too late to run. I went through the motions. Nodded when I was supposed to nod. Thanked Allah when I was supposed to be grateful. Performed my prayers with my family. But in my second life, the invisible one, I was being transformed. Every night, after everyone was asleep, I'd pull the Bible from my pillowcase and read by the dim light of my phone. I'd discovered that if I positioned myself in the corner of my room, behind my closet door, no one could see the light from the hallway. It became my ritual. My secret act of rebellion. I read the Gospels obsessively. Matthew. Mark. Luke. John. Reading and rereading the words of this man, this Jesus, who spoke with an authority I'd never encountered before. Not the authority of power and fear like my father. Not the authority of rules and punishment like the imams. But the authority of someone who actually loved people. Who actually saw them. Who called them by name. I read about him touching lepers when no one else would. Defending prostitutes when everyone else condemned them. Weeping over Jerusalem. Overturning tables in the temple because religious leaders had turned worship into a business. He was angry at the right things. Gentle with the broken things. Strong in ways that had nothing to do with domination. He was everything I'd been told God wasn't. And slowly, dangerously, I started to fall in love with him. Not romantic love. Something deeper than that. Something that felt like coming home after being lost your entire life. Like finding water after decades of thirst. Like hearing your name spoken correctly for the first time. But I was terrified. Because I knew what this meant. I knew where this was leading. In my world, there was no casual flirtation with Christianity. There was no exploring options. There was Islam, or there was death. Converting to Christianity, even thinking about it, was apostasy. Punishable by execution. And I was doing more than thinking about it. I was drowning in it. Suffocating on hope. On day 18 days until my wedding, I found a passage in John 14 that broke me completely. Jesus was talking to his disciples. He said, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5. I am going to prepare a place for you. A place. For me. Specifically for me. Not because I'd earned it. Not because I'd followed enough rules or been good enough or covered myself properly or submitted perfectly. Just a place. Prepared. Waiting. I will come back and take you to be with me. That word. Take. Like a rescue. Like someone coming for you when you're trapped. Like someone who doesn't forget you. Who doesn't leave you behind. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Because I'd spent my entire life being told I needed to earn my way to paradise. That I needed to be perfect. That even then, even if I did everything right, I still might not be enough. That Allah's mercy was arbitrary. Mysterious. Unpredictable. But Jesus was saying something completely different. He was saying, I'm coming for you. I'm preparing a place. You belong with me. Not because of what I did. Because of who He was. I closed the Bible and pressed it against my chest. Tears streamed down my face, soaking into my headscarf. Are you real? I whispered into the darkness. Jesus, if you're real, I need to know. I need to see you. I need help. Because if this is true, if any of this is true, then everything I've been taught is a lie. My entire life is a lie. And I don't know what to do with that. I waited. Listening. Hoping. Nothing happened. I fell asleep with the Bible still clutched to my chest, tears still wet on my face, hope and despair warring in my heart. And that's when He came. I don't know if it was a dream or a vision. I've heard people debate that distinction, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Because it was more real than anything I've ever experienced with my physical eyes. I was standing in my bedroom, but it wasn't my bedroom. The walls were gone. The ceiling was gone. Everything that had contained me was just gone. Instead, I was standing in a garden. Not like the lifeless fountains in our compound. This was alive. Trees I didn't recognize, with leaves that seemed to glow from within. Flowers in colors I'd never seen before. The air smelled like... I don't even have words for it. Like every good smell you've ever experienced, concentrated and perfected. Like home and safety and joy all mixed together. And the light. Oh God, the light. It wasn't coming from a sun. It was just everywhere. Warm. Golden. Gentle. The kind of light that doesn't hurt your eyes but makes you want to stare at it forever. I looked down at myself. I was still wearing my nightgown and hijab, except the hijab was white. Pure white. Not the gray or black I usually wore. And I wasn't afraid. That was the strangest part. I should have been terrified. Confused. Questioning my sanity. But I felt peace. Complete, overwhelming, inexplicable peace. Maryam. The voice came from behind me. I turned. And there He was. I knew immediately who He was. The same way you know your own name. The same way you know the sun is warm. Some things don't need explanation. They just are. Jesus. He was standing maybe 10 feet away from me. And I can't describe Him in a way that does justice to what I saw. Because He wasn't just physically present. He was more. Like He was three-dimensional in a world where everything else was flat. His robe was white. Brilliant white. The kind of white that makes snow look dirty. His hair was dark, touching His shoulders. His beard was short and well kept. But it was His eyes that undid me. Brown eyes. Deep brown. Warm. And they looked at me, into me, with a love so intense, so complete, so unconditional that I fell to my knees without thinking. Not because I was forced to. Not because protocol demanded it, but because my legs literally couldn't hold me up under the weight of being seen like that. Loved like that. Tears poured down my face. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Could barely think. He walked toward me. Each step he took made the light around him intensify. And I realized the light wasn't coming from around him. It was coming from him. He was the source. He was the light itself. He knelt down in front of me. Knelt. This being, this God, knelt in front of me like I was the one who mattered. Like I was the one worth bowing to. "Maryam," he said again. His voice. I can't, there aren't words in any language. It was deep but gentle. Strong but tender. It resonated in my chest, in my bones, in my soul. It was the voice I'd been listening for my entire life without knowing it. "That's not my name," I whispered. "My name is Maryam," he said, smiling. "That is your name. Your true name. The name I gave you before you were born. Before anyone told you who you should be. Maryam. Mary. The name of his mother. The most honored woman in both the Quran and the Bible." "I don't understand," I choked out. "Why am I here? Is this real? Are you Jesus?" "I am," he said simply. Those two words. The same words God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. I am. Not I was. Not I will be. I am. Present. Eternal. Here. Now. "You called for me," he continued. "You said you needed to know if I was real. So I came. Because when my children cry out for me, I always come. But I'm not a Christian. I'm Muslim. I was born Muslim. I'm supposed to." "You were born mine," he interrupted gently. "Before any religion claimed you. Before any man defined you. Before any rule imprisoned you. You were mine. You have always been mine. And I have been waiting for you to realize it." I couldn't stop crying. Couldn't stop shaking. 23 years of programming, of indoctrination, of fear, it was all crumbling. Dissolving. Burning away in the presence of this impossible love. "I'm supposed to marry Sheikh Khalid in 18 days, I said. "My father." "I know," Jesus said. His eyes held such compassion it hurt to look at them. "I know every tear you've cried. Every prayer you've whispered. Every moment you've felt invisible. I know, Maryam. I've been with you through all of it." "Then why?" The question burst out of me. Raw. Angry. "Why didn't you help me? Why didn't you answer? Why did you let me suffer?" He didn't look offended by my anger. Instead, he smiled sadly. "I've been answering you your entire life. But you were listening for the wrong voice. Praying to the wrong name. You were taught to fear God. To earn His love. To perform for His approval. But that was never me." He reached out and took my hands. His hands were scarred. Nail marks in his palms. And somehow, I knew, those scars were for me. He'd been wounded for me. Had died for me. Had come back from death itself, for me. "I don't demand your performance, Maryam. I gave my life so you could have yours. I don't want your fear. I want your heart. And I'm not going to let your father give you away to a man who doesn't see you. Because you belong to me. You always have." "But how?" I whispered. "How do I escape? How do I survive? They'll kill me if I leave. If I convert. If I... Do you trust me?" He asked. Such a simple question. Such an impossible question. I looked at him. At those eyes full of love. At those scarred hands holding mine. At this being who had knelt down to meet me where I was. "Yes," I whispered. "I think, yes. I trust you." He smiled. And his smile was like sunrise. Like every good thing you've ever experienced condensed into a single expression. Then watch what I do, he said. On your wedding day, when they bring you before the assembly, when you stand at the moment of decision, call my name. Out loud. In front of everyone. And I will show them who you belong to. They'll kill me, I said. They'll try, he agreed. But I didn't die and rise again to lose you now. Trust me, Maryam. Call my name. And I will show you a miracle that will make the parting of the Red Sea look like a magic trick. I wanted to argue. Wanted to ask for more details. Wanted a clearer plan. But looking into his eyes, I realized I didn't need details. I just needed him. Okay, I said. I'll trust you. He stood, pulling me up with him. Then he did something I'll never forget. He pulled me into an embrace. Jesus. The Son of God. The Creator of the universe. Holding me. Hugging me like a father who'd been separated from his daughter for years. Like I mattered. Like I was precious. Like I was loved. I sobbed into his shoulder. Let out years of pain and fear and loneliness. And he just held me. Didn't rush me. Didn't tell me to pull myself together. Just held me and let me break in his arms. I've been waiting so long to hold you, he whispered into my hair. My daughter. My beloved. My Maryam. When I finally pulled back, he wiped the tears from my face with his thumb. Then he touched my forehead, right between my eyes. You will remember this, he said. When you wake up, you'll remember every word. Every moment. Every detail. So that when fear comes, and it will, you'll remember that I am with you. Always. The garden started to fade. The light started to dim. Wait, I said desperately. Don't go. Please don't leave me. I'm not leaving you, he said, his voice echoing as the vision dissolved. I will never leave you. When you wake up, open your Bible to John 16 verse 33. Remember who I am. Remember whose you are. And get ready, Maryam. Because in 18 days, I'm going to set you free. I woke up gasping. My room. My bed. My prison. But everything was different. The fear was gone. The crushing despair was gone. In its place, this unshakable certainty. This impossible peace. Jesus was real. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Real. I'd seen him. Touched him. Been held by him. And he'd promised me a miracle. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and pulled up the Bible app I'd secretly downloaded. John 16 verse 33. The words appeared on my screen. I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. Past tense. Already done. Already accomplished. Already won. I sat there in my bed as dawn light started filtering through my window, and I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in months. Because I knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that I was going to be okay. That Jesus wasn't going to let my father destroy me. That in 18 days, something impossible was going to happen. I didn't know what, exactly. But I knew who. And that was enough. The next 17 days were the strangest of my life. Externally, everything continued as planned. The wedding preparations intensified. Invitations were sent to 300 guests, ministers, businessmen, religious leaders, extended family. My father had spared no expense. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a display of power. A social event. A merger of influential families. I was just the product being delivered. The dress arrived, custom-made, white with gold embroidery, heavy with crystals and pearls. It must have weighed 15 pounds. When I tried it on for the final fitting, I looked like a decorated corpse. Beautiful and dead. My mother cried. You're so beautiful, mashallah. Sheikh Khalid is so fortunate. I smiled. Said nothing. Because what could I say? That I'd met Jesus? That God himself had promised to rescue me? That in a few days, something impossible was going to happen? They'd lock me up. Call an imam to perform an exorcism. Maybe kill me themselves before the wedding ever happened. So I played my part. Smiled when expected. Thanked people for their gifts. Acted like a bride preparing for her wedding instead of a prisoner preparing for her execution. But inside, I was different. Transformed. I had a secret that burned like fire in my chest. I knew something they didn't know. Jesus was coming. I read my Bible every night. I'd gotten bolder, or maybe just more desperate. I'd moved it from my pillowcase to inside a hollowed-out Quran I kept on my shelf. The ultimate hiding place. Who would think to look for a Bible inside a Quran? I prayed differently now. Not the ritualistic prayers of Islam, though I still performed those for appearance. But real prayers. Conversations. I'd talk to Jesus like he was right there in the room with me. Because after seeing him, after being held by him, I couldn't go back to formal, distant, religious prayer. I'm scared, I'd whisper in the darkness. I know you said to trust you, but I'm terrified. What if I imagined it? What if it wasn't real? What if tomorrow comes and nothing happens and I'm just trapped? And every time, I'd feel that same peace. That same certainty. Like someone had wrapped a warm blanket around my soul. And I'd remember his words, I have overcome the world. The day before the wedding, my father called me into his study again. I walked in, same chair, same desk, same oud smell, same dead eyes watching me. Tomorrow, you become Sheikh Khalid's wife, he said. Tomorrow, you bring honor to this family. Do you understand the importance of this? Yes, Baba. You will be obedient. Respectful. You will make me proud. Yes, Baba. He studied me. Those black eyes narrowed. You seem different. Calmer. I expected more resistance from you. My heart pounded. But I kept my face neutral. I've accepted Allah's will, I said. The lie tasted like ash. He smiled. Satisfied. Good. That's what I wanted to hear. You're finally becoming a proper woman. Tomorrow, you'll see, marriage is a blessing. You'll be happy. I nodded. Kept my eyes down. Let him believe he'd won. But inside, I was counting down the hours. 24 hours until Jesus showed up. 24 hours until the impossible happened. 24 hours until I called his name and watched my father's world crumble. The wedding day arrived like a death sentence dressed in celebration. I woke up early, before dawn. Before the far prayer. And I knelt beside my bed, pulled out my hidden Bible, and read one last time. Psalm 46. I'd marked it a few days earlier. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. The Lord Almighty is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress. I whispered it like a mantra. Like armor. Like a battle cry. Okay, Jesus, I said quietly. This is it. I'm trusting you. Please, please don't let me down. I'm going to call your name in front of everyone. And I'm trusting that you'll do what you promised. Because if you don't, I'm dead. That peace came again. Stronger than before. Like a hand on my shoulder. Like a voice whispering, I've got you. I hid the Bible back in its place. Stood up. Looked at myself in the mirror. Today, I was supposed to become Sheikh Khalid's third wife. His property. His possession. But if Jesus kept his promise, And something in me knew he would. Today I was going to become something else entirely. Free. The preparations were chaos. My mother, my sister, aunts, female cousins, all descending on my room to transform me into a bride. Hair styled in elaborate braids. Makeup applied with precision. Jewelry, so much jewelry I could barely move. Gold necklaces. Diamond earrings. Bracelets that clinked with every movement. They dressed me in the wedding gown. Adjusted the veil. Stood back to admire their work. "You look like a princess," Layla breathed. I looked like a sacrifice. The women's celebration happened first, hundreds of women in our largest hall, music playing, dancing, celebrating. I sat on a throne-like chair on a raised platform while they danced around me. My mother cried with joy. Other women took pictures. Everyone acted like this was the happiest day of my life. I smiled. Waved. Played my part. But my heart was pounding. Because I knew what came next. The main event. The part where everything would either fall apart or fall into place. The nikah, the Islamic marriage contract signing. In front of everyone. Men and women separated by a partition, but all present. 300 witnesses to my imprisonment. Or my liberation. They led me to the main hall. My father walked beside me, not lovingly, but proprietarily. Like a man delivering merchandise. The hall was enormous, decorated with white roses and gold fabric. Opulent. Excessive. Obscene. On one side of the partition, I could hear the men. Talking. Laughing. Conducting business. On the women's side, everyone stood as I entered. Watching. Judging. Evaluating. I was led to a chair at the front. My mother sat beside me. My sister on the other side. Guards at the doors, because in our world, even weddings needed armed security. The imam began speaking from the men's side. His voice carried through speakers. Quoting Quran verses about marriage. About obedience. About a woman's duty to her husband. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together to keep anyone from noticing. Then came the moment. The question directed at me through the partition. Asma bint Abdullah, do you accept Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid as your husband, with the agreed-upon mahr, according to Islamic law? This was it. The moment where I was supposed to say yes. 3 times. Making it official. Making it binding. Making it permanent. Every eye in the room was on me. Waiting. Expecting. My mother squeezed my hand. Encouraging. Proud. I looked up at the ceiling. At the elaborate chandelier. At the golden crystal and excess. And I remembered a garden full of light. A voice that called me by my true name. Scarred hands holding mine. A promise that defied impossibility. Call my name, he'd said. And I will show you a miracle. I stood up. Gasps rippled through the women's section. Standing at this moment was improper. Disrespectful. Wrong. Asma, my mother hissed. Sit down. What are you? I pulled off my veil. Let it fall to the ground. More gasps. Horror. Confusion. The imam's voice came through the speaker. Sister, please remain seated and answer the. No, I said. My voice was shaking but clear. Loud enough to carry. Loud enough for everyone to hear. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. I said no, I repeated, stronger now. I don't accept this marriage. I don't accept Sheikh Khalid. I don't accept any of this. Chaos erupted. Women shouting. My mother grabbing my arm. My sister crying. The men's side exploding with angry voices. I heard my father's roar above all of them. What is the meaning of this? But I wasn't done. I took a deep breath. And I shouted the words that would either kill me or save me. My name is not Asma. My name is Maryam. And I belong to Jesus Christ. The world stopped. Every voice died. Every movement froze. 300 people stared at me like I'd just detonated a bomb. Because I had. I reject Islam. I shouted, tears streaming down my face. I reject this marriage. I reject all of it. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is God. And He is the only one I will serve. My father crashed through the partition. Literally tore through the dividing screen separating the men and women. His face was purple with rage. His eyes were murder. You will die for this, he screamed, grabbing my arms so hard I felt bones grind. You have disgraced us. You have destroyed us. I will kill you myself. He dragged me toward the center of the room. Threw me to the ground. I fell hard, the heavy wedding dress tangling around me. He turned to the crowd. Bring me a sword. This apostate will be executed. Here. Now. In front of all of you. I lay there on the cold marble floor, and I felt peace. Impossible, inexplicable peace. Because I'd done what Jesus asked. I'd called His name. I'd trusted Him. Now it was His turn. Someone handed my father a sword. Ceremonial. Sharp. Real. He stood over me. Raised it above his head. The crowd watched, some horrified, some approving, all transfixed. You chose this, he spat at me. You chose that kafir God over your family. Over your honor. Over your life. Yes, I said quietly. I did. He brought the sword down. Aimed at my wrists, the same hands that had held the forbidden Bible. The same hands that would bear the mark of my rebellion. The blade came down fast. Inevitable. Final. And then? Light. Blinding, impossible light. Not from the chandelier. Not from any natural source. Light exploded from me. From my body. White gold light that filled the entire hall. So bright that people screamed and covered their eyes. So intense that the chandelier above shattered, raining crystal. My father's sword stopped midair. Frozen. Like it had hit an invisible wall. I felt arms around me. Strong arms. Gentle arms. Lifting me up from the ground. And I smelled that same smell from the garden, that indescribable scent of home and safety and love. I told you, a voice whispered in my ear. A voice only I could hear. I told you to trust me. Jesus. He was here. In this room. Invisible to everyone else but undeniably, impossibly present. The light intensified. And in that light, everyone in the room saw something. I know they did because later, much later, some of them would testify to it. They saw a figure. Radiant. Glorious. Standing between me and my father. Protecting me. Shielding me. They saw a man with scars on his hands. A man whose face shone like the sun. A man who looked at my father with eyes full of justice and righteousness and authority that made earthly power look like a child's game. And they heard a voice. Not with their ears, with their souls. A voice that echoed in the depths of every person present. She is mine. You will not touch her. My father stumbled backward. The sword fell from his hands, clattering on the marble. He fell to his knees. Not in worship, in terror. Because he'd just seen God. And God had said no. The light faded gradually. When it finally dimmed enough for people to open their eyes, I was standing in the center of the room, perfectly fine. Untouched. Not a scratch on me. My father was on the ground, trembling. The imam was prostrate, weeping. Half the crowd had fled. The other half stood frozen, staring at me like I was something holy. Or demonic. They couldn't decide. Sheikh Khalid, the man who was supposed to become my husband, was in the corner, visibly shaking, his face white as death. And I was free. The guards at the doors had abandoned their posts. The path to the exit was clear. Like someone had orchestrated an escape route. I looked at my father, this man who had controlled my entire life. Who had terrified me. Who had tried to kill me. He looked small. Broken. Defeated. I forgive you, I said quietly. Words I didn't know I had in me. Words that came from someone else living inside me now. I forgive you for everything. But I'm leaving. And you can't stop me. I walked toward the door. My heavy wedding dress trailing behind me like a discarded old life. No one moved. No one tried to stop me. They were too shocked. Too terrified. Too confronted with something they couldn't explain. I reached the door. Turned back one last time. Jesus is real, I said to the frozen crowd. He's more real than anything you've been taught. More powerful than any law. More loving than you can imagine. And he's offering you the same freedom he just gave me. All you have to do is call his name. Then I walked out. Out of the hall. Out of the compound. Out of my father's house. Out of my prison. Behind me, I heard my mother crying. Heard people arguing. Heard my father shouting orders that no one obeyed. But I didn't look back. Because Jesus had kept his promise. He'd shown them a miracle. He'd set me free. And now, impossibly, miraculously, I had to figure out how to actually escape Saudi Arabia before they regained their composure and came after me. But that's a different part of the story. Right now, in this moment, walking out of my own wedding in a torn dress with Jesus himself protecting me, I was experiencing something I'd never felt in my entire life. Freedom. Pure, complete, terrifying, exhilarating freedom. And it was worth everything. I walked out of my father's compound wearing a wedding dress worth more than most people's yearly salary, with no money, no phone, no identification, and no plan. But I wasn't alone. I could still feel him. Jesus. His presence wrapped around me like invisible armor. Every step I took away from that house, I expected someone to grab me. To drag me back. To finish what my father had started. But no one came. The streets of Riyadh were busy, evening traffic, people heading home from work, families out for dinner. And there I was, walking along the sidewalk in full bridal regalia. People stared. Of course they stared. A woman alone, in a wedding dress, uncovered, walking without a male guardian. I was violating about 17 laws just by existing in public like this. I should have been arrested within minutes. The religious police, the Mutaween, should have descended on me immediately. In Saudi Arabia, they were everywhere. Watching. Waiting. Ready to enforce morality. But I walked for 20 minutes and no one stopped me. It was like I was invisible. Or protected. Or both. I kept walking, not really knowing where I was going. Just away. Away from the compound. Away from my father. Away from the life that had almost consumed me. My feet hurt. The wedding shoes were decorative, not functional. Designed for sitting on a throne, not walking through city streets. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant realizing how impossible my situation was. Then I heard it. A voice. Quiet but clear. Turn left at the next corner. I stopped. Looked around. No one was speaking to me. But I'd heard it. As clearly as if someone had whispered directly in my ear. Turn left. Trust me. Jesus. I turned left. The street was quieter here. Residential. Walls and gates protecting family compounds. I kept walking, my heart pounding, following, what? A voice? An instinct? Faith? Stop at the blue gate. Knock 3 times. I saw it. A blue metal gate, simple compared to the elaborate entrances in this neighborhood. Modest. Unassuming. This was insane. I was about to knock on a random stranger's gate, wearing a wedding dress, in Saudi Arabia, after publicly converting to Christianity and rejecting Islam. But I'd already crossed the point of no return. Sanity was no longer the priority. Survival was. I knocked 3 times. Waited. Nothing. I knocked again, panic rising. What if I'd imagined the voice? What if I was actually losing my mind? What if? The gate opened. A woman stood there. Maybe 50 years old. Filipino. She was wearing house clothes, simple dress, hair in a bun. A domestic worker. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. "Please," I whispered in English. "Please, I need help." Maryam, she said. I froze. How do you know my? I was praying an hour ago, she said, tears suddenly filling her eyes. And Jesus told me someone would come. Someone who needed sanctuary. Someone wearing white. He told me to watch for you. He told me your name. She opened the gate wider. Come in. Quickly. Before anyone sees. I stumbled through the gate. She locked it behind me and led me through a small courtyard to a separate structure, servants' quarters, I realized. Detached from the main house. Inside was a single room. Simple. Clean. A bed. A small bathroom. A cross on the wall. You're Christian, I breathed. Yes, she said. My employers don't know. They think I'm Muslim. I convert every day just to keep my job. To stay alive. She looked at me with a mixture of awe and terror. What happened to you? Why are you dressed like this? I told her. Everything. The wedding. The rejection. Calling Jesus' name. The light. The miracle. The escape. She listened, tears streaming down her face, hands clasped over her mouth. When I finished, she fell to her knees. Salamat sa Dios, she whispered in Tagalog. Thank God. Thank God. I've been here for 8 years. Alone. Hiding my faith. Praying that God would do something. Would reach someone in this country. And he used you. He actually used you. I don't know what to do now, I said, my voice breaking. I can't stay here. They'll find me. My father, he has connections everywhere. The police. The government. I need to leave Saudi Arabia, but I don't have papers. I don't have money. I don't have. You have Jesus, she interrupted firmly. And if he got you this far, he'll get you the rest of the way. We just need to trust him. She stood up, suddenly energized. I have a friend. Another Filipino worker. She works for a family with connections to the Western Embassy. Maybe she can help. Let me make some calls. They'll trace the calls. They'll find. They won't, she said with surprising confidence. My employers are gone for the weekend. I have the house to myself. And God didn't bring you here just to let you get caught. Now sit. Rest. Let me think. I sat on the bed, the first time I'd sat since leaving the wedding. My body was shaking. Adrenaline wearing off. Reality setting in. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. I'd rejected Islam publicly, called Jesus Lord in front of 300 witnesses, and survived. But surviving the moment and surviving the aftermath were two very different things. Her name was Maria. The Filipino woman who'd opened her gate to me. And over the next 48 hours, she became my guardian angel. She brought me food, simple food, workers' rations, but it tasted like a feast. She brought me clothes, a plain black abaya and headscarf, the most common outfit in Saudi Arabia. The perfect camouflage. You'll blend in, she said. Just another covered woman. Invisible. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very garment I'd resented my whole life was now my protection. She contacted her network, an underground railroad of Filipino Christians working in Saudi Arabia. I didn't even know it existed. But apparently, there were thousands of them. Scattered across the kingdom. Hiding their faith. Praying in secret. And occasionally, very occasionally, helping people like me. There's a man, Maria told me on the second day. An embassy worker. British. He's sympathetic to situations like yours. Political asylum cases. Religious persecution. He's helped a few people get out before. How? I asked. They'll never let me leave. I don't have a passport. Even if I did, women can't travel without male guardian permission. My father controls everything. Jesus split the Red Sea, Maria said simply. He can handle Saudi bureaucracy. Her faith was almost annoying. Almost. But it was also the only thing keeping me from complete despair. On the third day, a Pakistani man arrived at the gate. He looked terrified, kept glancing over his shoulder like he expected religious police to materialize from thin air. I'm Yusuf, he said quickly. I'm a driver for the British Embassy. Maria says you need help. Yes, I said. I need to get out of Saudi Arabia. I know who you are, he interrupted. Everyone knows. The story is everywhere. The woman who rejected Islam at her own wedding. Who called Jesus' name and light filled the room. The religious authorities are looking for you. Your father has put out a reward. For information leading to your capture. My blood went cold. How much? Does it matter? He shook his head. Listen, I shouldn't be here. I could be killed for this. My family could be killed. But I saw something 3 years ago. Jesus appeared to me in a dream. Told me he loved me. That he'd died for me. I've been a secret Christian ever since. Living in fear. But when I heard your story, about what you did, how you stood up in front of everyone, I thought, if she can be that brave, I can at least drive a car. He pulled out a British Embassy badge. I can get you into the embassy compound. It's considered British soil. Once you're inside, Saudi authorities can't touch you. You can claim asylum. When? I asked. Tonight. After midnight. Less traffic. Less security. Less chance of being recognized. I looked at Maria. She nodded. This is the way, Maryam. I can feel it. So that night, 3 days after my wedding I put on the plain black abaya, covered my face with a niqab, and got into Yusuf's car. He'd hidden me under a blanket in the back seat. If we get stopped at a checkpoint, don't move. Don't speak. Don't even breathe loud. Just pray. So I prayed. The whole drive. Not formal prayers. Just talking to Jesus. Like he was sitting next to me under that blanket. Okay, so this is terrifying. I know you got me this far, but I'm really scared. Please, please let this work. Please don't let them catch me. Please. Peace, my daughter. I haven't brought you through fire just to let you drown in fear. Keep breathing. Keep trusting. You're almost there. We stopped. A checkpoint. I heard voices. Yusuf speaking to guards. My heart hammered so loud I was sure they could hear it. Where are you going? Embassy duty. Night shift. You're alone? Yes, sir. A pause. A long, terrible pause. Go ahead. The car moved forward. Under the blanket, I exhaled. Tears of relief streaming down my face. 20 minutes later, we stopped again. We're here, Yusuf whispered. Stay hidden until I open the door. We're inside the embassy compound. You're safe now. He opened the door. Helped me out. And I looked around. High walls. Security cameras. British flags. Western cars. Foreign soil. Safe soil. Thank you, I said to Yusuf, grabbing his hands. Thank you. You saved my life. Jesus saved your life, he corrected, tears in his eyes. I just drove the car. Now go. Go and tell the world what he did for you. Tell them that he's real. That he's worth everything. Tell them our stories, mine, Maria's, yours. Tell them God is moving in Saudi Arabia. In the darkness. In the impossible places. I hugged him. This stranger who'd risked everything for me. Then he left. And I walked toward the embassy building, a security guard already approaching, looking confused about why a Saudi woman was wandering the compound at 1 a.m. I need asylum, I said in English. My name is Maryam. I'm a convert from Islam to Christianity. And if you send me back out there, I'll be executed. The next 6 months were bureaucratic hell. Interviews. Documentation. Waiting. Verifying my story. Processing my asylum claim. But I was alive. I was safe. And I was free. The British government eventually granted me asylum. They relocated me to London, gave me a new identity, helped me start over. My father tried everything. Diplomatic pressure. Threats. Bribes. He even sent messages through intermediaries saying he'd forgiven me, that I could come home, that everything would be fine. But I knew better. In his world, apostasy only had one outcome. And forgiveness wasn't it. I never saw my family again. My mother. My sister. My brothers. They were forbidden from contacting me. I was dead to them. Literally, my father held a funeral. Buried an empty grave. Told everyone I'd died. It was easier than admitting his daughter had rejected Islam and escaped. The price of freedom was everything I'd ever known. Everyone I'd ever loved. But here's what I gained, life. Real life. Not the half-existence I'd been living. But actual, full, breathing, choosing, free life. I gained Jesus. A relationship with God that wasn't based on fear and performance, but on love and grace. I learned what it meant to pray and actually be heard. To read scripture and have it speak directly into my circumstances. To worship without terror. I gained purpose. Because my story, as painful as it was, wasn't just for me. It was for every woman trapped in religious oppression. Every person praying to a God who never answers. Every soul suffocating under the weight of impossible rules. My story was proof that Jesus is real. That he keeps his promises. That he performs miracles. That he sets captives free. And that's worth every sacrifice. I'm recording this 3 years later. 3 years since I walked out of my father's compound in a wedding dress. 3 years since Jesus split reality in half to protect me. 3 years since I left everything I'd ever known and became this. Maryam. A new creation. A living testimony. I'm sitting in a small flat in London right now. It's nothing like the palace I grew up in. There's no marble. No fountains. No servants. I share a bathroom with 3 other people. My furniture is from charity shops. My clothes are secondhand. And I've never been happier in my entire life. Because happiness, real happiness, has nothing to do with what you own and everything to do with who owns you. And I'm owned by Jesus. The one who loved me enough to die for me. The one who appeared to me in a garden of light. The one who stood between me and a sword and said, "She is mine." I belong to him. And that changes everything. Let me tell you what my life looks like now. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is pray. But not like before. Not the ritualistic, fearful prayers I used to perform. I pray like I'm talking to my best friend. Because that's what Jesus is to me now. My friend. My Savior. My Lord. My everything. Good morning, I'll say, making coffee in my tiny kitchen. Thank you for another day. Thank you for freedom. Thank you for loving me when I was still your enemy. What do you want to teach me today? And I listen. Not for a booming voice from heaven, but for that quiet, gentle whisper I've learned to recognize. The one that sounds like peace. Like truth. Like home. I work at a refugee center now. Helping other people who've fled persecution. Other ex-Muslims. Christians from Iraq and Syria. Atheists from Iran. Women escaping forced marriages. People whose stories echo mine in 1,000 different ways. And I tell them about Jesus. Not aggressively. Not with condemnation. But with love. With gentleness. With the same grace he showed me. I know what you've been through, I'll say, holding their hands while they cry. I know what it's like to feel trapped. Hopeless. Invisible. But there's someone who sees you. Who loves you. Who has a purpose for your life that's bigger than your pain. His name is Jesus. And if you let him, he'll set you free too. Some of them listen. Some of them don't. Some think I'm crazy. Some are curious. Some fall on their knees right there and give their lives to Christ. And every single one of them, every single person who says yes to Jesus, I see him smile. I feel his joy. Because this is what he died for. Not religion. Not rituals. Not rules. People. Broken, beautiful, desperate people who need a savior. I attend a church now. A small Middle Eastern Christian congregation. Mostly ex-Muslims like me. People who understand what it costs to follow Jesus. We worship in Arabic and English. We pray for our families back home, the ones who've disowned us. We celebrate communion and remember the price he paid for our freedom. And we cry. We cry a lot. Because the cost of following Jesus is real. It's not theoretical. It's not abstract. I lost my family. My country. My culture. My language. I even had to learn to think differently, speak differently, be differently. But Jesus is worth it. He's worth everything. I still have nightmares sometimes. I'll dream I'm back in Riyadh. Back in my father's house. Back in that grey abaya, being dragged to Sheikh Khalid. And in the dream, I try to scream. Try to call Jesus' name. But nothing comes out. I'm silent. Trapped. And the sword comes down. Then I wake up. Gasping. Shaking. Tears on my face. And I'll whisper, Jesus. Jesus, I'm scared. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be afraid, but I know, Maryam. I know. That's why I'm here. In the nightmares. In the fear. In the memories. I'm always here. And no one can take you from me. Not your father. Not Saudi Arabia. Not your own fear. You're mine. Forever. And the peace comes. And I sleep again. Because he's faithful. Even when I'm weak. Even when I doubt. Even when fear tries to convince me it was all a mistake. He's faithful. But here's what I need you to understand. And this is why I'm telling you this story. Why I'm recording this testimony. Why I'm risking even more by making this public. Jesus is real. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Not as a concept or a philosophy or a moral teacher. He's real. He's alive. He's active. He's moving. He's still performing miracles. He's still setting captives free. He's still standing between his children and the swords raised against them. And he's looking for you. Yes, you. The person watching this right now. Maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you've been taught your whole life that Jesus was just a prophet. A good man. A messenger. But something inside you wonders, what if he's more? What if all those dreams you've been having, the ones where a man in white appears and speaks to you, what if that's real? What if he's calling you? Maybe you're an atheist. Maybe you've rejected all religion because it's caused nothing but pain. And I get it. I understand. Religion can be a prison. But Jesus isn't religion. Jesus is relationship. Jesus is freedom. Jesus is the one thing worth believing in because he proved his love by dying for you. Maybe you're already a Christian. But you've been lukewarm. Comfortable. Playing it safe. And my story makes you uncomfortable because it demands something from you. It demands all of you. Your comfort. Your safety. Your reputation. Everything. And maybe, just maybe, Jesus is whispering to you right now, this is what following me actually looks like. This is what it costs. This is what it's worth. Are you willing? Whoever you are, whatever your background, whatever you've done or haven't done, Jesus is calling you. He's saying the same thing he said to me in that garden 3 years ago. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not someday. Not eventually. Not after you clean yourself up or get your life together or become good enough. Right now. Today. This moment. Come to him. Just as you are. Broken. Scared. Doubting. Confused. Angry. Whatever. Come to him. Because he's not waiting for you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be willing. I want to pray with you. Right now. If you're watching this, and something inside you is stirring. If you're feeling that pull. That whisper. That impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, this is real. Pray with me. It doesn't have to be eloquent. It doesn't have to be in Arabic or any specific language. It doesn't have to follow any formula. Just talk to him. Like I'm talking to you right now.